Welcome, everyone. I'm John Ryan for the Predictive Playbook Sports Betting Show. This is NFL Week 7 already. Time flies. It just absolutely flies. I can't even believe it's Week 7. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFL this week, so we're going to get right to it with Rudy Reyes and Bo Crouch providing us some great insights on each of these games. With the first game, I know Rudy is chomping at the bit with that Pittsburgh Pirates hat on. He is one of the best guys, though, seriously. He knows the Steelers inside and out. And when he says he likes them to win or fears that they'll lose, it's normally correct either way. I personally will tell you right now, I love the Steelers this week. Absolutely love them. Let's take a look at the matchup, though. First of all, they are playing the New York Jets. And for whatever reason, they got the star wide receiver now. But it takes time to build chemistry, doesn't it? And even if your name is Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, since leaving Green Bay, is not exactly fit in any spot that he's gone to. But the Jets are a 2.5-point favorite. Again, Mike Tomlin getting absolutely no respect. And the more they disrespect him in the marketplace, the more I want to respect Mike Tomlin for everything that he's done in his career. So we have the Steelers 4-2. They're 1-1 at home. The Jets, a miserable 2-4, 1-2 with Aaron Rodgers going like this after plays that should have been completed, in his opinion. And I don't think that's good either, to show up your teammates like that and act like you're in a recess in 5th grade and disappointed in your playmates. It's just ridiculous in my opinion. But we do have Aaron Rodgers with 1,387 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Harris is running the ball extremely well for Pittsburgh, 378 yards, 1 touchdown on 96 carries. And Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, New York Jets, 41 receptions, 399 yards, 3 touchdowns. That is amazing, actually. The total for this game is 38.5. Jets are favored by 2.5. What do you think, Rudy? Tell us who is going to win this game.
Well, let's roll back that wonderful bean footage, because when you look at what happened against the Las Vegas Raiders, Steelers were really able to take them to the woodshed, and it wasn't quite on every single down. But when you look at the play for the line of scrimmage, Justin Fields, and rumors around Russell Wilson starting, I think there's a lot to look at from the Steelers' offensive standpoint. And no, the Steelers were really never in the market to acquire Davante Adams, as much as fans would probably like to think that they are. But when you look at George Pickens, he needs to grow up and really recognize that he plays a vital role in this offense. And Arthur Smith was quoted last week as stating that, there are other guys involved in the process as far as who's favored, who's not favored, who's going to play, who's not going to play. They basically worked him and rubbed him out of the offense. Does that Arthur Smith offense sound very familiar? Well, it should, because that's exactly what happened to Kyle Pitts in Atlanta. Needless to say, that when you look at George Pickens, you look at the offensive line and the angry runs that Najee Harris was able to really put together and just roll over this Raiders defense, really wasn't much to speak of. No, Mike Tomlin does not get the credit that he deserves, and he certainly does deserve it. However, you're not going to see that happen this week, and probably not going to see it until he reaches that above 500 mark. Sound familiar? Well, it should. Because Mike Tomlin is one of those guys where you looking at him as, well, over 500, and that's good, but that's not great, and it's not great. Steelers are all-time against the Jets. It's 20-7 overall in their lifetime meetings. And for the Jets, the only reason why the Jets are in this game is because they do have Davante Adams, and that moves those numbers up. It moves the money line up. It moves your DFS up. It moves all the needles and checks all the boxes. But we know that Davante Adams played decently since leaving Green Bay. He did that in Las Vegas. And needless to say, I look at this and I'm gonna tell all these bettors, I'm not a betting guy, but if I was, not so fast, my friend, because when you look at the Jets and you think to yourselves, are they on a quest to snap a 13-year playoff drought? Not going to happen, at least not this Sunday. Which is the longest active streak in the NFL and North American professional sports. Doesn't look very good. I think that number is more of a false prophet. I think the Steelers will roll here. I just think there's way too much defense. TJ Watt will be on the corner getting those proverbial sacks, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, and everything else he could possibly muster. So Steelers defense against this Jets offense when Aaron Rodgers does not look that good, not off the back foot, especially coming off of an injury last season. This year is very indicative of how his play has been, and that's one of the reasons why this team is 2-4. I'm picking the Steelers for obvious reasons: his defense and offensive fluidity, regardless of who you put. But rest assured, Russell Wilson will be on a short leash, and if he screws up, I can merely say that Justin Fields will certainly get the nod and get back in this. So, yeah, Steelers win here.
I like it. And by the way, before we turn it over to Bo here, Mike Tomlin is 44-44 straight up, 53-31 against the number for 63%, 52-35 to the under for 60% when priced as an underdog of 9.5 or fewer points. Only in 2011 and 2016, he lost money in this role, going 1-2 against the number. So hardly a loss when you add up 15 seasons. If he's facing a non-divisional opponent in this situation, he has seen his Steelers go 26-28 straight up. Now, remember, you're a dog of 1 to 9.5 points. So playing the money line here, even though it's a losing record, made you a nice profit. Maybe about the purchase of half a car, if you will. So against the spread, he's gone 34-20, 63%, and also the same number, ironically, coincidentally, to the under. So it looks like that Pittsburgh defense, to me, is going to be on display on Sunday night, and Rodgers is going to have another one of those nights staring into the heavens, wondering what he's doing in New York playing quarterback. Bo, what do you think of this game?
See, I actually feel kind of good about your Steelers in this instance because I'm going to go the other way. So the panel doesn't agree, which means they can win. So I like the Jets here. One thing that I would push back on about the chemistry end of it is they don't have to go and build a lot of chemistry. They already have it. They played together for a long time. And it's not that Adams was washed leaving Green Bay. You got to remember that first year with the Raiders, he had Carr, he had career numbers, right? So it's not that he's necessarily fallen off. You just have guys like Gardner Minshew and O'Connell throwing to him. I don't know how much success you really think you're going to have in that situation. So this one, both teams have good defenses. I don't trust the Steelers offense to actually put up points. So if this becomes any kind of track meet at all, if the defense doesn't get the stops that they're used to getting, then you have to look at the more experienced, more accomplished quarterback here. And even if for whatever reason Russell Wilson gets the start, I feel like that's more of a ploy just to get people to have to look at both options. But I would still take Rodgers in this scenario. Not a Rodgers guy, but I mean, if you have Lazard, Wilson, and Devontae Adams, that's an offense that's going to be able to score some points, even against a stingy defense.
I agree 100%. I think we really nailed this one down here. This might be our show best bet, but there's other games of major importance here. We're holding off on the Eagles-Giants game in hopes that Eytan will be able to meet with us, just a little bit delay of his busy schedule. If you don't know him, he is one of the Eagle fan base's favorite media guys, and really a great guest to have on the show, especially regarding Eagle games. Last week, we said that the Eagles were going to have a dogfight and that 9.5 was way too many, and they darn near lost the game, which would have killed me in the eliminator for the circa. So although I did put out a bet on Cleveland to cover the spread, I, in my strategy, had no other choice but to do that. And believe me, neighbors were over and stuff, and I was really negative. I was like a real Eagle fan, and I was saying they're not going to do it. It's 10-10. They missed a field goal. They did this. They're not doing this. Sirianni's yelling at the fans, for God's sake. I mean, we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about the Chiefs and the 49ers. This is on my radar as my pick for the eliminator this week, with the 49ers as a 1.5-point favorite. So obviously 52%, 55% chance of winning based on that number. But I think there's a lot of meat and potatoes supporting the 49ers to come out here. They don't want to go 3-4. The Chiefs are 5-0 and cruising. A loss right now is not going to deter them at all in winning that division and getting possibly back to the Super Bowl again. So we have it at Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California, 4:25 Eastern Standard Time on Fox. And, Brock Purdy is the real deal. There's no more debating him. Anybody who says that this is all like a fluke is out of their minds, and I would turn them off immediately. So he has, 1,629 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Mason, the running back, is really doing well, 609 yards, 3 touchdowns, 114 carries. And who's that other running back they have that hasn't played much? Oh, Christian McCaffrey. Talk about depth. I mean, holy moly. And then we have Jennings, the wide receiver, an unsuspecting name, leading the team with 25 receptions, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns. Let's start with you, Rudy. Do you agree with me that the 49ers are just going to roll in this game and possibly win convincingly?
I don't think anything's convincingly when you're talking about this Super Bowl matchup, a rematch, in a matchup, in a rematch, whatever you want to call it. Look, the bottom line to this in this particular game is that the Chiefs are coming off a bye. They're well rested. They have very few people, if not 3, on their injury report. So nothing to make me believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be rolls over, in this game or against any other team. Why? Well, because they're 5-0. They've had 5 chances and 5 wins, and they've done nothing but the right thing. They look a lot better defensively. They get the pass rush out there with Chris Jones kind of cementing the middle of this defense. To be honest with you, they're on the right campaign. But don't forget what happened to a perfect record as the New England Patriots and Tom Brady-led offense. So I don't necessarily agree that this is going to be a lay-down, rollover, knockdown type of game for Kansas City against 49ers. I think when you look at the 49ers, yeah, they have some injuries, but most teams will have injuries, and some of those will clear up during bye weeks. Well, the 49ers have yet to have that. So we're going to see exactly what Brock Purdy has up his sleeve with George Kittle in the mix. They do not have Hufanga in the backfield defensively for the 49ers. So there's a lot to like as far as the matchup is concerned between Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. Of course, we know what happened when they faced each other the last time, and Patrick Mahomes won another Super Bowl title. So this is going to be a very interesting game. The matchup's going to be good, but the 49ers are favored. Why? Well, because they're home. Outside of that, I don't necessarily see the Kansas City Chiefs just rolling over. Say, oh, well, it's okay. Let's just give them the win. No, this is going to be a Patrick Mahomes-led offensive line that's going to match up well with 49ers defense and take advantage of those weaknesses, especially in the secondary without Hufanga. And that's going to happen a lot more often than not. So as much as the line states it's 1.5 for the spread against the 49ers, I'm Kansas City on the road or anywhere for that matter, even if it's not a Geha Stadium or GEH or whatever you want to call it now, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to roll on. I just don't see anybody really formidable enough along their schedule in order to take them down. So I'm taking the Chiefs on the road. It's sad for me to say that because my twin brother is a huge Kansas City a fan. So, so we're going to see exactly what this looks like. But if I was under, I'd take the 49ers, maybe some pizza money. But outside of that, Mahomes is going to just run this to the ground.
That's good stuff, Rudy. Let me see if I can convince you at least to go more neutral, maybe. I have this little algorithm here. We're going to bet on any team priced between the 3s. And what that means, if you don't already know, is that it's a 3-point favorite to a 3-point underdog. That team is coming off a game with 5 or fewer dropped passes. The opponent has allowed 14 or fewer points in each of their last 2 games. So that would be Kansas City allowing the 14 in 2 consecutive games, which is an extraordinary feat at the NFL level. It really is, and it's a sign of regression possibly where the 49ers will score 24 to 28 points potentially. That set of parameters, 43 and 17 straight up, 72%. But against the number, and honestly, I would play this game on the money line and bag the 1.5 because how many games end between the 3s in the NFL? A ton. And you don't want to get, a losing bet off because you took -1.5. I would just do the money line, and hopefully you don't have to pay more than -130 on it. But you can see 73% against the spread, Rudy, over the last 10 seasons. That's telling me to bet the Niners on the money line. I didn't convince him, Bo.
Yeah.
Let's see what you have to say about this game.
You didn't convince me either. This is one where even though when you look at them head to head, the numbers do favor the Niners. What those numbers don't show you is just the sheer amount of injuries. Even if these guys play, they're banged up, right? And this is, I mean, when you're talking about a kicker that's doubtful, and even if he does play, it's an ankle injury. How accurate is he going to be, right? You've got Debo that's questionable. You know, I mean, there's so many guys that are along their injury list that are questionable and doubtful that if they were full strength, I could get into it. But with the amount of injuries, I think KC gets to steal one on the road here because realistically, they may be one of the healthiest teams in the league.
Yeah, there's no doubt there. No doubt there at all. 49ers are missing, key components on defense, not just the one player. So it is hard for me to pull the trigger on that, and I'll have to look at it again. But you get an algorithm of 73%. The point is that even if the 49ers lose this game and I play them, I know that over time, every time that algorithm comes up and it's active, it doesn't matter who the team is or the mascot. It's the situation that we're betting on. So I will take all of your input into consideration before I render my decision. I apologize for that, actually, because I actually saw a presidential rally yesterday for the first time in my life, and I think I'm still numb. It was a surreal experience. We live in a small town, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed by Secret Service and Rangers and state police. And I don't think I'm not a gun guy, and I have friends that are great hunters, and I have nothing against them. But me personally, when I see that much ammunition, hundreds of Secret Service, and to protect one person because we have a couple idiots in this country that screw things up. But it was interesting. I will say that it was interesting just to attend and kind of take in the experience. But I'm a little bit numb yet. It's it's kind of like probably like a Jets fan must feel like after a game. It's got to be something like that, right? Or a Panthers fan. Nevertheless, let's move on to the Ravens. And the Ravens are a team that, preseason, they were definitely in consideration for a run at the Super Bowl and dethroning Kansas City, et cetera, et cetera. They had some bad breaks. In fact, they came within an eighth of an inch of beating the Chiefs on the opening week, which would have made the Chiefs obviously 4-1 now. But to your points, the Chiefs are definitely the best team in the NFL as we speak. With the Ravens game, this is a situation where I have a hard time understanding why they are only favored by 3 or 3.5, depending on what book you're looking at, which I'm looking at right now. So this is a marquee game, in my opinion, for this weekend's card. And let's just start with Rudy here and see what he thinks. And I personally am really on the fence here. This is probably not a game I'm going to bet, although I've been on the Ravens a couple times successfully this season. This one just smells kind of funny to me, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
What actually doesn't smell that funny is the fact alone that when you're chewing up pellets like Derrick Henry has on any field that he's touched so far this year, no reason why he's not the offensive player of the week. I mean, 3 weeks and third straight that the Ravens have, had Lamar Jackson. And to be honest with you, it didn't look very good because they weren't able to really put Derrick Henry on the ground. I mean, when your quarterback is rushing more than the guy that you hired in the offseason to do the rushing for you, that's certainly a problem. But they have found a way to really get him the ball when they need to. He's rushed for over 130 yards, 24 carries, and a 30-23 win over the Washington Commanders this past Sunday. I don't think that's going to change a whole lot, especially against a otherwise very stingy defense with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Why? They're 11th ranked for rushing defense, only allowing 113 yards. So this is going to be a battle of will. who can at the line get through or who can at the line stop that run, closing the gaps, closing the A gaps, being able to get the pass rush up the middle, to be able to collapse that pocket and make Lamar Jackson one-dimensional, which is very hard to do. He's not the NFL MVP because he's a slouch. He's the MVP because he knows when to throw the ball and, unfortunately, in some cases has thrown interceptions in a very untimely manner. Why? Due to recognizing the checkdowns and the throwouts. And is that a touchdown or is it not a touchdown? So him being able to reach plays on his own feet are good, but questionable when he's outside of the pocket and being able to throw the ball on the run. So with that being said, this is a Derrick Henry show. King Henry will show up once again and take the crown. And despite the Buccaneers with the penetrable, defense they've had all season long, holding opponents to just barely over 100 yards, is going to be a battle of will. This is going to basically happen in the trenches, as some people would say. And if I was a betting person, I don't know which way I would go based on these numbers, but I can tell you this much. It's going to be a good one. Now, not only that, but looking defensively and highlighting a player in Sean Tucker, who's allowed only 971 carries on 14 rushing attempts by being able to sway off defenders or would-be tacklers, has really gone up very, very well. He's gobbled up about 137 yards. He's had a touchdown and 3 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. So Baker Mayfield is a guy that I don't know if I trust all that well. Why? Because he's banged up so much that it makes me a disbeliever in regards to whatever kind of spread that they have. But this is both 4-2 teams that are going to be going head-to-head. And I look at this as a very solid test for the Ravens. I look at this as a solid test for the Buccaneers. I'd stay away from betting on this game only because it's so closely matched. But if you're taking the spread at 3.5, and maybe the money line would maybe help you a little bit. And Buccaneers are favored at 165 with the under going to Baltimore. So, again, more pizza money, throw on some anchovies, a couple extra slices of salami, and you got yourself one heck of a pizza. But, watch it because they can get a little slim despite the toppings.
I like your take on King Henry because that's one of my top prop bets I'm looking at, the over rushing yards. And I may actually add over rushing attempts because the Bucs may, stack the line of scrimmage with, a lot of guys in the box and force Lamar to use play action and et cetera and risk, big vertical route plays, those big chunk plays and 50-yard touchdown passes. But the only way I see the Buccaneers winning this game is to contain Henry, which is monumental. I don't think it's possible, actually, the way he is running the ball and the way that offensive line is creating the gaps for him to scoot through. And he's very patient.
Right.
It's just really cool to see him at his age with all the dings and injuries that he has overcome to be playing at this level. It's crazy, but it's so good to see. Bo, what do you think the Bucs need to do to stop Henry and keep this to a low-scoring game? Because the line is 49.5, 3.5. That implies that the Ravens are going to score 27. If they score 27, I can tell you right now, they win against the spread about 76% of the time over the last 5 years. So how in the world are the Bucs going to keep the Ravens under 27 is my big question.
So it's not really going to come down to the Bucs to slow them down. It's going to come down to coaching from the Ravens on if they get too cute and try and do something else. It's why they lost in the postseason last year. They decided to abandon the run as the best running team in the league. And we watched them do something very similar the first 2 weeks of this season. They acted like they didn't have Derrick Henry on the roster. They only used him 30 times in the first 2 games combined, 32 times roughly. So if they look like they have the last couple of weeks where they have decided to actually use Henry the way he should be used, give him, 24 plus carries, I think that the Bucs get taken down relatively easily here. Again, I'm not a huge Baker fan. I don't trust him. He's wildly inconsistent. And so if you can dominate the trenches and, really take over the game with Derrick Henry, I think they win this game relatively easily. But if they get, if they outsmart themselves, if you do the Kyle Shanahan thing, where he gets away from what he does well, then that's where the Bucs have an opportunity to win. But this should be the Ravens on the road here.
Yeah, I think so too. The fact that it's not 5.5, I would like this. I would like the Ravens more if they were favored by 6.
Yeah,
and that's just 30 years of experience talking right now. But the 3.5 is kind of always makes me think, what?
If it was 5.5, I'd take the Bucs. Just because for whatever reason that number means the underdog wins. Like I don't.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah, good point.
So with the next game here, we have the Eagles going up against the Giants, their first divisional matchup of the season. In my opinion, it couldn't come at a worse time. The only good thing is they're away from the home base, and they travel up I-95 to MetLife Stadium there in east of Rutherford, New Jersey, to take on the Giants at a 1:00 start. And the Giants are not a doormat anymore. They obviously have their problems, and they need to cut down on mistakes. But Daniel Jones is actually finding a way to cut down on mistakes, even though he's making more bad decisions that cost them games. That seem to be trending in the right direction, even though they don't have Barkley. And this is Barkley's, welcome back. And I do think the Giant fans will not boo him, and they will welcome him back before the game. But then once the game starts, he's public enemy number 1. But I really think the whole team right now is we've talked about this 3 weeks ago with that book I mentioned from Tom Peters back in the 80s, In Search of Excellence, all about running companies. And the character of an organization takes on the character of its leader, okay? Whether it's the president of the United States or whether it's the president of Apple or whatever. It could be your little company down the street that sells hoagies and stuff. And if they're not effective at the leadership, the ownership part, they're not going to make much of a profit selling hoagies. I think Sirianni, what he did, a head coach cannot do that. Yell at the fans and then react to the fans saying that, whatever they said to him, it should go in one ear out the other, or, you have your fake earplugs on and you just don't hear it. You have to be focused. And then that shows that he's not focused. And I thought, Andy Reid back in the day, the number of times that he mismanaged a game with the time on, especially in the last 2 minutes, last 3 minutes, he must have heard so many bad things about him and his family and everything else that he does, have another cheesesteak, Andy, whatever. He never once reacted to it, and he still doesn't. So I think the Eagles are a team I just cannot back right now. And if anything, I'll give you this quick algorithm here, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. It's not good for the Eagles. It really is not good, but it supports the over.
It is easier to ignore when you have a fistful of rings.
That's the Steelers. Here we are. Bet the over in a divisional showdown from week 6 on out. The dog is coming off a loss, which the Giants are. And the favorite is coming off a win. Price is the favorite. They didn't cover the spread either, as we already said. That's telling me to take the over 42.5 points. Eagles, Giants, 22-11 for 67% over the last 5 seasons. Now, my question to you, Rudy, is if this game goes over, in my eyes, my experience in a divisional matchup, that means the Giants are going to win this game. I really do believe that. If this goes over the total, that means the Giants have to score. And if they score, and the way the Eagles offense is playing right now, I think the Giants have a chance to win.
Did the Giants get a quarterback that I'm not aware of?
No, probably not, because they don't know how to draft quarterbacks, and they look at free agent quarterbacks as some type of garbage disposal. I mean, look, you were talking earlier in regards to Saquon Barkley being booed at home or being booed on the road. I mean, look, if people at the vet are going to boo Santa Claus, they're going to boo anyone. It doesn't matter if it's Nick Sirianni or the President of the United States. It really makes no difference whatsoever. And you are reflective of the people that you work for and that work for you. And unfortunately, this is not working for anybody. Sirianni doesn't find a way to make this work for his organization. He's basically out the door by the end of the year, in my humble opinion. But the Giants at 29th in points per game, 20th in total yards per game. I mean, this is this is a poop show. I mean, the time of possession is fourth in the NFL, but they don't do a whole lot with it. So 2-4-0, doesn't look very good for Brian Daboll and even Joe Shine. So look, the bottom line is this: is that you have key pieces missing on offense for the Eagles. The Giants aren't playing all that well either. And again, one of those quarterback situations where you're asking yourselves, man, is Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts of old? Well, no, maybe not under this regime, hence the word Nick Sirianni being gone by the end of the season. So there's, again, one of those situations where Jordan Mailata is not going to be starting number one pass blocking guy and 4 overall tackle. Pro Football Focus is number 1. And he won't be in this game because of a hamstring injury. Fred Johnson, who subbed in both right and left tackle, that makes you extremely valuable on any football team, is an option to start for him. And then you have Mickey Betton, who started 28 games at left tackle, and he might be ready if he's asked to fill in. There's just so many different injuries and issues for this team on both sides of the ball, and the way that they're playing and offensive and defensive fluidity doesn't make me believe this is going to be a barn burner by any stretch of the imagination. Unfortunately, the Eagles are going to be without guys like Goddard and Mailata and Milton Williams, and then Burks is questionable, Hunt and Slay. I just think that without Andrew Thomas for the Giants with surgery on his foot, it's going to certainly hamper this offense. But look, this offense has played 100% all season long, and unfortunately that streak will end against the Eagles. So I just there's so much to dislike about this game. I can't pick a winner, but if I did, I would say Giants with the upset with the field goal to win it. I mean, this is just not a bettor's game. It's not a betting game for me. Even if I was a bettor, I'm not betting at this game. But I do like the story, though, behind Saquon Barkley's return to play against the Giants. I think that's an overriding factor in this game as far as from an entertainment value is concerned, because we don't know what the plays going to look like on the field, and that could be the topic of conversation with whoever color and play-by-play announcers are for this game. So, I'm not a bettor's guy, but again, Giants will end up taking this in a slim margin.
Well, the interesting thing is, I have this database and it's massive, right? So I knew that the Eagles have not scored a single point in the first quarter of any of their games. This does not happen very often in the NFL. And I should have put the numbers together. I'll put it together and I'll put a tweet tied to this show so that you know. But it's about a 5% probability based on history of these teams that don't score in the first quarter through week 6 don't make the playoffs. So with that passionate fan base in Philly, coming off the Phillies demise, which I'm wearing a Phillies jersey today just because it was on top in the drawer. But seriously, how much more pain can the Philly fan base take if this team fails that miserably? And honestly, last week, Bo, before I turn it over to you, they won the game, but it was not pretty. And they did have A.J. Brown, and they did have Smith in the lineup. And the last opening drives, which they've had 6 now, maybe you guys know the answer to this, but I'll ask Rudy first, and it's just you pick a number. How many yards has the Eagles' first drive accumulated in total?
Since Saquon or before Saquon?
This year.
Yeah.
This year.
From game 1 to now. How many total yards on the first drive of the game have they mustered?
56.
Bo?
12.
The answer is 12.
Yeah. Only
because too much credit.
Only because I am on a show with a Phillies guy. So this is this was me dropping a dagger on him the other day. So I knew the answer to this.
Let's see what Bo thinks about this. And I can't imagine the Eagles not making the playoffs. I mean, it kind of blows my mind. Washington's playing very good. I guess it's conceivable, but tell me why the Eagles can make the playoffs and get this boat on the right course here.
Yeah, well, I mean, this particular game is going to be the Saquon show anyway. right? This is one where he felt slighted why he left, right? I mean, it's not like he was getting crazy more money to go somewhere else. I think he just felt disrespected. So they're probably going to lean into this a little bit. Daniel Jones is going to be, he's going to be on the ground a lot, because that's something they don't do well, is run the ball. They also don't defend the run particularly well. So if it becomes a situation where they have to try and keep pace, they become one-dimensional. And anytime the Giants have done that, Daniel Jones gets sacked a lot. So I would expect to see the Eagles break that trend of not scoring in the first quarter and beat up on Jones pretty heavily.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think one question for you guys, just quick answers. Malik Neighbors has been a godsend for the Giants. No question about it. I had him ranked number 1 wide receiver in the draft. You could see it at LSU that he was going to be something special. Maybe I didn't see it being this special, but he's a stud. Mm-hmm. He could be an all-pro for many, many years to come the way it's going, especially if the Giants find a way to draft a quarterback, as Rudy said earlier. But he's listed as questionable. He was at practice yesterday on a limited basis. He's coming off the concussion protocol. Yeah. If he plays, how are the Eagles going to defend him? Because I don't see anybody on that defense that can match up with him one-on-one. They're going to have to bracket him. That's going to limit the pass rush then on Daniels. That's the one matchup I'm going to be really intrigued to watch in the game. What do you think about all this, Rudy?
Good luck. Eagles going to have their work cut out for them. That's going to be tough. Neighbors just been such a stud. He does so many different things well. He's very athletic. He's very tall. He knows how to get open. If the route's not there, he'll design a route, but he just doesn't have the quarterback to get that ball to him. And that's part of the problem there in New York, in that they just haven't had the right guy under center. And that's maybe since Eli Manning. And I'm probably putting that slightly out of context, perhaps. But I just don't know that Malik Neighbors is going to be as dynamic as he could be coming back from a concussion. But we'll see what that looks like. They'll probably administer a test to him prior to the game or leading up to the game to be sure that he's good to go. I think once he passes that protocol, he'll be able to play and play well.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing, right? Is he hasn't actually cleared protocol yet, so that's why he's listed as questionable. But to Rudy's point, the biggest thing is they don't have the quarterback. So will he be open? Sure. Will he have enough time to get him the ball? That I don't know about. I feel like this is definitely going to be one, especially because they will most likely be fairly one-dimensional, that Jones is going to be under duress a lot. So even the passes he does get off, he's not going to be standing pretty in the pocket. He's going to have to move around to complete those. And, when we've watched him do those types of things, he's not the best at it, right? Like he can run. I mean, he can scamper for a first down, but he's not the best thrower when he's moving around.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a game that I'm just going to watch. Like I said, I lean towards the Giants here until proven otherwise. When you have a team that's in dysfunction at the organizational level and it's not getting better week to week, I don't see. I'd rather see the Eagles, put on a game that they're capable of doing, and then reassessing where they're at in this season. But with that number haunting everything I look at that's positive for the Eagles of not scoring in the first quarter, and those teams rarely make the playoffs. And that's the fact. So bold statement, but that's the beauty of numbers. That gives you the objectivity to not like hope and think that something's going to happen that probably is not going to happen. Does that make sense? I think it did.
The worst part about this game is for the Eagles, if you lose, everybody loses their mind. What's wrong with the Eagles? It'll headline the whole week, right? If you win, everybody's going to be like, yeah, you're supposed to win that game.
Right.
Like there's only downside to this game. Unless you just absolutely beat the brakes off him and sack him like 10 times. Like that's the only way you're going to see anything positive out of this game. Because otherwise, if you sneak by him, even if it's like a 2 or 3 point game, people are going to look at that and be like, I mean, man, the Eagles need to figure something out. If they beat them by 10 or more, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's how that's supposed to go down. If they lose, I mean, literally, that'll be half of the week's content on every major network.
I think
Yeah,
Dan is going to get to
this is
know
sloppy.
Jalen Carter quite a bit, and quite
It's
well.
probably going to be one of the sloppiest games I can think of in recent memory in regards to who's going to score first and who's going to throw more interceptions and, horrible quarterback play, horrible offensive line play. I just don't, there's really no way to go right. And there's always a way to go wrong, especially in a game like this.
I mean, you don't have to look back
Yep.
too far because the Sunday night game last week was terrible. That was a terrible game.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Yes, it was.
So let's move on to our best bets here for the last minute or so, and then we'll send everybody off. And thanks for everybody watching the show as always. Hopefully you like the fact that we're 10-4 in our show best bets. So we're looking to add 3 more winners. I'm going to steal the show only because I'm the host, and I'm going to pick the Steelers first before the rest of you guys do. But I think, the Steelers is a correct play here, especially with the Tomlin angle that I mentioned earlier and the betting algorithm at 73%. I just can't get off of that. And the fact that they're a dog is just the icing on the cake. Let's turn it over to Rudy and see what his best bet thoughts are for the day.
Well, since you stole my rolling thunder, obviously everybody knew I was going to pick the Steelers in this one because of the aforementioned reasons why. But my best bet is Derrick Henry. If there was a prop bet or just a bet in general that you really want to go with, Henry's your guy. He's a king for a reason, and he's going to make it known against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a very stingy defense up front. They're going to have that pass rush sooner than later, and quite often with some mix and variety blitz packages. But as you know, as long as coaching gets sent in properly with the right call, right play, makes King Henry the right guy to do a full bet on. So I'm going to take I'm taking King Henry as the winner in this matchup in regards to what he's going to win, what his totals will be. I'd say probably closer to 200 yards in this game. I'm probably doing that maybe a little bit more generous than I think I would normally give him, but I think at least 200 yards, if not close to that. And why the heck not for the NFL Offensive Player of the Week in the AFC?
That's interesting because you can get alternative lines too, Rudy. Like if the line is 120 minus 110 and you get an alternative line that's over 150, that's going to pay like 3, 4, 5 to 1. So we'll have to look that up. But we'll go, if it's all right with you, we'll go King Henry rushing yards
Yes.
over whatever the line is, minus 110 vig.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You got it.
Love that one too. And last but not least.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to go with the game of the week here, the Lions versus the Vikings. Vikings are a 1.5 point favorite. Both teams are perfect against the spread this season. I'm going to go with the Vikings to continue that trend on their end by getting the win. Again, covering 1.5 isn't crazy because you have to at least have 1 point to even win the game. So I'm going to have them to cover. And I think what it comes down to is the fact that Aidan Hutchinson, this is the first game without him there. He's a high motor guy. They're going to feel his absence, and the Vikings at home are going to get this win. I think they ultimately split with the Lions this year, but I think they get this win at home.
Excellent stuff. So we have King Henry over the total of rushing yards as a prop bet. And we have the Minnesota Vikings from Bo. And we have the Steelers from me. And I'm going to change the rules for next week. We can have best bets on the same team because that wasn't fair to Rudy. He's the best Steelers guy I know. So that wasn't all that fair for him. But anyway, thank you guys for coming on the show. Make sure everybody follows everything that was on the scrolling on the bottom for each of these guys because you'll be glad you did. And for that concludes our show. And on behalf of both of them and myself, remember the 2 things. Bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.